Yudkowsky coming to very generously give us of his time and of his Torah, specifically in this two-part series that we're trying to give on Emunah. Rabbi Yudkowsky kicking off this couple of shiurim. Just about Rabbi Yudkowsky, he's a very sought-after speaker and teacher in the Torah world in Jerusalem. He's mashgiach in Torah's Chaim, and still in Tiferes Yerushalayim. He has, I think, hundreds of Talmidim. I myself personally have gained from him. He's not so aware, but I used to learn in Rabbi Kushelevsky's yeshiva. And sorry, coming from there. Oh. And I can tell you that once a week that Rabbi Yudkowsky would come, it would be a highlight of the Bochrim and of the Avrechim in the yeshiva over there, and it was always a packed room. There would always be people standing. There wasn't enough room when Rabbi Yudkowsky would come. Just a very small idea. Reb Meir Chodosh, who was the mashgiach of Yeshivas Chevron, the previous generation, he was once asked, what is the essence, how can you sum up the chinuch approach, the educational approach of Slobodka? And in one word, Reb Meir Chodosh said, V'ahavta, you shall love. And his Talmidim understood that when he said that word, it meant two things. Number one, V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, that you shall love your fellow Jew. You should see the beauty, the goodness in the other person, and you shall love him for that. And on the other hand, V'ahavta is Hashem Elokecha, that you shall love Hashem. And it's this pillar of V'ahavta, of love, that described the Musa, the educational approach of Slobodka. And if I have the audacity to say what I've heard from Rabbi Yudkowsky, whether it was in Yeshiva, it was in Givat Ze'ev, that we had the opportunity of living in close proximity, it's this theme that runs through every single one of his talks. It's about love, it's about connection between us and our fellow Jew, connection between us and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. In Ayelet HaShachar, at this Monday evening lecture program, we've set a very high caliber of speakers that come and address us. But if I can say about Rabbi Yudkowsky, he's not just an excellent speaker, but he's an excellent person. The Gemara in Moed Katan says that if...
leave till you're done. I keep saying, okay, well, let me finish. But no, stand go.
Hold it to make yourself comfortable. If your teacher is similar to that of an angel, you should seek Torah from him. The Gemara in Moed Katan says. That means that not only if he's a good speaker, not only if he's a very knowledgeable person, but if his essence is on fire, his essence of his spiritual level is on a very high plane, that's the person that you seek to learn Torah from. I had an interesting interaction with Rabbi Yudkowsky a couple of weeks ago. We were trying to work out the details of this shiur, the topic, the time, the different things. And I was calling Rabbi Yudkowsky and he wasn't answering. And I was calling and I was calling and I was calling, and I probably called 20 times. I don't even think I left enough time in between each call for Rabbi Yudkowsky to call me back. Eventually, I caught up with him, and I realized that I'd probably gone too far. And before we even started the conversation with Rabbi Yudkowsky, I'm really, really sorry that I've been driving you crazy. I apologize. I realize that it's a bit too much. I'm sorry. And there was this terribly awkward silence on the phone for a few seconds. And Rabbi Yudkowsky said in a very strong, very stern, but very sincere voice, he said, Gavi, he said, listen to me very, very carefully. If we're going to be doing this together, you have to understand something right now. And I was like bracing myself to hear what this is going to be. I was actually on the repressor. I was holding on to the repressor fence and half bending down, waiting. And he said, for me to teach Torah and for me to spread the light of Emunah is such a privilege and it's such an honor. You don't need to apologize. I need to thank you. And I think if we're talking about Doimel Malach Hashem Tzavaka, if we're talking about someone who's similar to that angelicness of spirituality, or someone you can learn from, it's Rabbi Yudkowsky. With that, I'd like to call him up to address us. Sorry.
I'm still your friend, and that's amazing. All right? I just want to say, first of all, what I said to Gavi that night is that working with you is a pleasure and an honor, and it's never a bother to your call. And the other thing I could say is that we should send a clip of this to my wife, because she's the only one that would appreciate it. Like but anyway, honestly, I feel delighted and happy and fortunate and honored to be able to be here with all of you tonight. I imagine, like up in Shemayim, how much nachas HaKadosh Baruch Hu must have when his beloved children, there's 8 billion people on planet Earth, and there's some unique, special, precious people that have a heart and a soul big enough to want to understand him, to want to like dedicate themselves to appreciating the beauty of his vision for the world. And we want to learn, and we want to know, and we want to be close to him. We want to spend time appreciating all the good that he is and all the good that he wants us to be. And life is busy, life is hectic, and really everything in our life, everything, getting up in the morning, taking care of your kids, back in the day, everybody here, right? But anyway, but everything we do, going to work, is all the way to express godliness in the world. When we run our business and we care for every one of our customers, or every one of our clients, every one of our patients, and we do it with heart, and sometimes people don't have enough money to pay, we say, it's okay, the main thing is that I'm helping you, Hashem is going to take care of my parnasa. Everything we do is filling the world with the light of Hashem's goodness, really. But to take time out to come and spend once a week or once every 2 weeks to think about life and steig and grow together to better ourselves, I'm sure that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has so much nachas, and I feel like lucky and fortunate and honored to be here with you all. So thank you so much for letting me be. That's what I said to Gabby. Like, I feel so lucky to be a little bit part of this beautiful thing that's happening, and I appreciate the opportunity, and I thank you all. Okay, so maybe I wanted to share tonight a certain idea. Let's maybe, with Hashem's help, we'll begin a bracha that we say in davening every morning. The first bracha, the 2 brachas that we say every day before Kriya Shema. The first one is thanking Hashem more or less for the beauty of the physical world, both in the morning and at night. There's 2 brachas before Kriya Shema. And the second bracha is thanking Hashem for the spiritual vision which is expressed through the Torah of how every human being could become a great person. Every one of us, every human being, every Yid, could become a great person. In the morning, the bracha ends, Baruch Ato Hashem Yoitzer HaMa'oros. There's a cycle, a 24-hour cycle built into every day. We have the time of energy, of the sun shining, which drives all photosynthesis and also gives people energy and vigor, fills the world with light. And then we have a nighttime, which is time to, so to say, absorb what we went through in the day, process what we went through in the daytime. It's downtime, time to sleep and rest and recuperate for the next day. So in the morning, we thank Hashem for morning. Baruch Ato Hashem Yoitzer HaMa'oros. Nighttime, we make the bracha Baruch Ato Hashem Hama'ariv HaRav. We realize both these parts of our day are essential for healthy human life, and we spend time focusing on them and appreciating them. But interestingly enough, in the bracha that we mention in the morning, which is thanking Hashem for light, for the sun, the energy of daytime, and I don't know, maybe you know, but I for sure know people, and maybe some of you also here working American hours. I had a friend many years ago that worked IT for a company in America, and he was up a whole night. He was up a whole night, and he slept during the day, and you all know, it doesn't do the same. Working nighttime and sleep, even if you sleep the same 7 or 8 hours, but it doesn't do the same job. Your body is tuned to be awake during the day when the sun is there, it gives energy, and at night, you're supposed to be sleeping or partying in Tel Aviv, depending on which, whatever. But, okay, so, I didn't really mean that. Anybody? Okay. For the record. So, but within this bracha every morning, I'm not in yeshiva, I better behave myself, huh? Okay. So, what'd you say?
I won't tell.
Okay, thank you. But within this bracha that we thank Hashem every day for light, somehow in the middle gets introduced, I would say, like a whole new concept or topic that we're talking about, which is the malachim, the angels, praising Hashem. We talk about, we say kedusha, right? Yoitzer Misharsim, Hashem created servants. Misharis is a servant. Hashem created every angel as a spiritual force that accomplishes something that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants to get done in the world. Nothing happens by itself. There's an energy, like today we know through the physics, that built into every atom is a huge energy field holding it together. An atom bomb could destroy a city by releasing the energy that's bonding the atoms together, the pieces of the atoms together. But Yoitzer Misharsim, every angel is created with a mission, and all the Hashem Misharsim Kulam, they all come together to praise Hashem. And we speak about the praise of Hashem. Yachad Kulam, Kedusha, they all say Kedusha, Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh Hashem Tzavakos, and Baruch Kavod Hashem B'Mkoimim. They praise the one who created this world, and we think about the fact, just sort of as an aside, there's billions of galaxies, and in every galaxy there's billions of stars. If we can envision in a certain way the chorus of malachim up in Shemayim, that would be a perfect example. There's billions of groups of malachim. Within every one of the groups of malachim, there's billions of individual malachim, and they're all praising Hashem. It's not just a numbers game. It's an ideas game, because really every one of the malachim is giving Hashem a distinct, different praise. Every angel is created. No two angels have the same mission. No two human beings have the same mission. Every angel was created to carry out something else. One angel is the angel of the carnations, the other is the angel of the roses, the other is the angel of the... Somebody else? I don't know. Help. Bird of paradise. Okay, daffodils. Thank you. So each angel has, he's exposed to, by being the messenger that gets this job done, he's exposed to a certain kindliness and wisdom of Hashem that he experiences that none of the other angels experience. Because he's the one that's taking care of the daffodils, making sure they spread their roots and that they get light for photosynthesis, and that a little bee comes to pollinate them so they can produce seed and set seed for more daffodils to be around next year for other people to enjoy. So he's experienced a certain window into Hashem's kindness that no other angel has. All these billions and billions of malachim are praising Hashem. Every single one is seeing something about him that the other ones don't see. I think that's why we speak about the malachim, the noisim reshus zelazeh, each of the angels gives permission to the other ones, because each angel realizes what I'm witnessing and the vision that I see of Hashem's kindness and wisdom is so vast and so great, but every one of the other billions and billions and billions sees different things than me. And I don't think that only I'm right, and it's also true about people. That's what I think is so critical. Every human being experiences life differently. We all born with a different natural personality. We grew up in the city, we grew up in the family, we grew up, you're the older sibling, the middle sibling, the youngest sibling. So many different things. When you were younger, dad was going to college, and then when the older kids grew up, dad is then working. Everything changes. We all experience life differently, and every human being was created with their own unique mission in the world. Nothing is accidental. The schools you went to, the teachers you had, good teachers, not such, difficult teachers, so on and so forth. Everything was designed to create us, to give us ultimately a certain distinct self that we are, that we could bring the light of Hashem to the world in our own unique way. But how does this all come into the bracha of Yotzar Ha'Oros? We're thanking Hashem for light. How does this? I think the answer really is obvious, right? There's two parts to light. One is to be able to see the physical world that we live in. We see chairs and tables and people and food and whatever the room we're in. And the other concept of light is sort of understanding what you see. Sometimes people say to each other, you see what I'm saying? It's an idea of comprehending a concept. When we look at the world, our brains filter out what we're seeing and bring to us a certain message from whatever it is that we see. I'll give you a simple example. 3 people could walk into the exact same room. One of them is a contractor, one of them is a clothing designer, and one of them is a lighting specialist. The contractor walks into the room, and right away he's noticing how they did the finishing, if they made the tiles only halfway up the wall or all the way up to the top, how they put in the air conditioning ducts. His brain is trained to be focused. That's what he does the whole day for the past 15 years. So that's right away what he notices. The person who's a clothing designer walks into the room and he's noticing if people have zippers or buttons, and if they have pullovers, or he's looking at the clothing. That's what he's noticing, and that's what stands out to him, because that's what his brain is focused to notice. The other person was a lighting expert, and he's noticing beautiful light bulbs and the beautiful fixtures and so on and so forth. The highlighting, low lighting, the top of the ceiling is dark and only lower in the room, and so on and so forth. Each person is focused on what they see. A Yid's mission is really to be focused on seeing the kindness of Hashem in the world. What are our brains supposed to pick out for us? When I wake up in the morning and I walk outside, our life is supposed to be a life of noticing a world that's filled with thoughtfulness and caring and love and kindness. HaKadosh Baruch Hu created a beautiful blue sky and gorgeous fluffy white clouds and birds and trees and smiling parents and kids, and just to notice, to see, and it has to touch us, the kindliness of the one who created this whole thing. Sometimes I think to myself, imagine you have a child, they just moved to a new neighborhood, and let's say people sometimes make aliyah, and the kid is a little bit having a hard time, he doesn't have so many friends, and his parents really, it comes his birthday, and they say they really want to try to like cheer him up a little bit, and they go all out, and they bring a clown, and they bring a balloon guy, and they bring a musician, and they bring pizza and panada, and they call all the kids in the class, and they say, listen, we're going to make a surprise party for Joseph, and we want everybody to come, and everybody make sure to bring a present, and if you don't have money to bring a present, we'll pay for it, just we want everyone to come, and like, you know, mom picks Joseph up from school that says, Joseph, like, I just on the way home, if you don't want it, I have to make a stop, I have to buy socks for Deborah, whatever. Anyway, and meanwhile, dad comes with the minivan and picks all the kids up and brings them home, and everybody's on, and they go, and the party is just incredible. Joseph comes home, and everybody's, surprise! I'm like, oh my gosh, you know? And then every bit of it was thought out, like his favorite colors and his favorite characters from the Marvel comics, I don't know what, like, they just did everything special for him. Like, imagine how those parents would feel if at the end of the day, when they like pay the musician, and they pay the clown, and they pay the entertainer, and they pay the pizza guy, and they're left, and all the kids leave, and all the wrapping paper, and the smashed panada, and the candies, and all of it, and they're busy cleaning up, and they say, well, Joseph, how was the party? And he says, like, well, I don't know, like, really, I wanted like blue ribbons on the cupcakes, and you guys got blue ones. You guys got red ones, so I don't know, it was like a pretty dumb party, you know? Like, hello? You're gonna just say it. Like, everything. It's a mushal, but it's a little bit true to how human beings could let themselves experience life if they don't choose to work on it. You could walk, you could talk. There's people in the hospital that wish they could get up and walk around, and we're all healthy. It's such miracles. A digestive system and lungs and a heart and kidneys and joints, if they still don't creak when it's raining outside. But, you know, like, whatever bit you have, everything is a gift. It's a matana. If we stop to focus, and somebody thought of all this for us, the cycle of seasons, winter and rain and summer, changing times, and there's so much good that was put here for us to look at it and appreciate it and say, thanks, Mom and Dad, you threw me a great party. By the way, the reason why we got the blue ribbons instead of the red ones is because the kid in class is allergic to red. I don't know what, you know. That also really had a reason for it. We talk about seeing light. In the middle, we're talking about the malachim praising Hashem, because seeing light doesn't only mean the physical light. It means to see, appreciate what this world is all about, to see deeper, to see the love and thoughtfulness and kindness, stereo vision and stereo sound. Hashem thought of everything to be able to allow us to have so much enjoyment in this world. I want to share with something that I think makes a critical difference in being able to truly appreciate life to the utmost. So much of how we experience things is based on our perception of what they mean to us. I want to share with you a story. A bunch of years ago, I was on the way out the door, on my way to yeshiva one morning. I remember it was a Monday morning, and I got a phone call from a young married guy who lives up north in Rechasim. We were friends. I used to live in Arnov. He was living in Yeshiva in Arnov. I met him one day, and he came over for Shabbos meals a bunch of times. So, kids, I see he's calling me at 9 o'clock in the morning. How you doing? Yisrael, his name is. We start talking, and he says, Rabbi, you need to help me. I don't know what to do. I'm so bent out of shape. You have to help me. I said, what happened? So he tells me as follows. He was a young married guy. He just married maybe, I don't know, half a year, a little more, maybe 8 months, I don't know. He was married less than a year. And his father-in-law, Baruch Hashem, was a professor in college in Haifa University, and this boy was really dedicated to learning. He was a serious learner, and his father-in-law said, I want to treat you, I want to buy you an apartment. You should be able to sit and learn with a clear head. I so appreciate your learning, what you're doing for Klal Yisrael. We need Talmidei Chachamim, and I want to buy you an apartment. That's beautiful. He spent a bunch of time finding the right apartment. They were looking at some apartments he didn't like, his wife did, some apartments his wife liked, but he didn't, and some apartments his parents didn't like. I don't know, whatever the deal was, it had to be the right price and the right location. He said, we finally found an apartment after a bunch of months of looking around, and we went to contract, we went to a lawyer, we're working out all the details of the contract. He said, this morning, Monday morning, we had a meeting, we were supposed to go to the lawyer to sign the contract and buy the house. He had to apply for a mortgage, whatever it was, like everything was set up. And he said, I just hung up the phone, I just got a call from the agent, the real estate agent, and he told me that yesterday, Sunday, after a month of this back and forth and hammering out all the fine details on the contract, somebody came yesterday to look at this house. And they liked it, and they offered the owner of the house, not even a lot, I don't know, maybe 50,000 shekel more than us. And the owner of the house said he's going to sell it to them instead, and he signed with this guy who was, I guess, like a little bit of, pusher, and he signed with the owner of the house, the Zichron Dvarim, that he's like, promising to sell it to them, and we lost the deal. We lost the deal. He said, Rabbi, I don't know, what am I supposed to do? What should I do? Like, this is crazy. We worked on the whole thing. So I said, you asking me what I think you should do? Honestly? He said, yeah, what should I do? I said, I think you should turn on the music and dance. So I said, what? I said, honestly, I think you should turn on the music and dance. So he said, why? So I said, there's two possibilities, two ways to interpret this story. There's two different possible things that just happened right now, okay? One is, option one, you would have bought this house and it would have been just paradise. It would have been just so beautiful. You would have been so happy, and your wife was happy. You would have raised the kids. It would have been just lovely, idyllic. And Hashem came and said, like, I'm taking it away from you. You don't deserve it. I'm taking it away. You don't get it. Take that, young man, right? Okay, I'm maybe overdoing it a little bit, but that's the basic idea, right? It was great. It was perfect. And you, like, you're not good enough. Hashem doesn't like you enough, and he took it away. And that's one option. The other option is that there's something about this apartment that you don't know that you would have found out the hard way after you moved in. Maybe there's a lady downstairs with a mental disability who screams and yells day and night. Maybe there's someone in the building selling drugs, and you have all these like uncomfortable kind of people coming in and like, yo man, I need my fix, what's up? You know, like, I don't know what, you know? Maybe there's a non-religious teenager who plays blaring music a whole Shabbos afternoon. Maybe there's a leak that the guy painted over, and it's going to cost you, I don't know, a lot of headache and time to try to find it, and the mold, and your wife and the kids are going to have asthma. Who knows what? There's something about this apartment that wasn't good for you. And Hashem Yisrael says, like, Yisrael, you're a good guy. So I'm going to make sure you don't get stuck. And at the last minute, Hashem saved you and took it away, so you shouldn't have a lot of headache. Those are the two options. I said, I know you. You're such a good guy. And I want to say something interesting about him. When he was in the Parsha of Shidduchim, you all know, like in the Israeli yeshiva system, some people, I don't know, I don't personally agree with it so much, but that's what happens. People say, like, I want to sit and learn, so I need an apartment. So people want to know if the father-in-law was planning on helping and how much, and so on and so forth. This boy, Yisrael, was a Baal Tshuva. He was non-religious till he was 16 years old. His mom and dad made Aliyah. His dad was a conservative cantor in some conservative synagogue in America, but they were very, Zionistic, had a love of Israel, and they moved there to Israel. When he was like 16 or 17 years old, he got exposed to Yiddishkeit. He left the Mamlachti school, he went to yeshiva, and he became a Baal Tshuva, and he became a real emes of Torah. When he was dating, he told me, he said, I'm not asking for a penny from my father-in-law. Like, if I want to learn a Koil, Hashem Yisrael is going to help me, and that's it. So he went out, and Baruch Hashem, he met this girl who I mentioned before. Her dad is a professor in Haifa University, and she also became like more turned on to the beauty of Torah, long-term Torah learning, and she wanted a guy who was going to sit and learn and become a big Talmud Chacham. And after he got engaged, 3 weeks later, I remember that phone call also, he called me up, and he said, Rabbi, you're not going to believe it. My father-in-law just called me up, and he said, my daughter wanted a boy sitting and learning Torah, and if that's what she wanted, that's what I wanted to help her have. And his father-in-law told him, other boys that she was suggested to asked, like, are you planning on helping out? How much are you helping out? And I just hung up the phone. I said, no, the shidduch is not for us. I hung up. I want a guy to marry my daughter because he wants to marry my daughter. I don't want a guy to marry my daughter because on the way, by the way, he's also going to get. He said, you didn't say a word about anything. You weren't interested. You didn't ask. And my daughter and you met, and you're just such a great couple. And in his own words, really honestly, he told me he's got engaged to the best girl in all of Israel. So, like, he's lucky he found her, right? But Baruch Hashem, every shidduch should always feel that way. But he said, now that you're engaged, I want you to know that I want to buy you an apartment. I want you to be able to sit and learn and fulfill your life's dream, your dream, my daughter's dream. I said, so why should I interpret the story now that all of a sudden Hashem is messing you over? Look what he's doing for you. You were so, like, taken aback by the gift that you got from your father-in-law, such a wonderful person, and from Hashem, who is there to help you fulfill your dream. Now I should think that what's happening is that Hashem is taking away something good from you. Why do you choose to see it in that way? I imagine that Hashem is helping you out. So turn on your music and dance and say, thank you, Hashem. I want to tell you another story that happens to me many years later, but it just brings out the same point. And sometimes you see it. It's so much easier to see it sometimes by other people. But I had a neighbor in Givat Zev. He's not there anymore. He moved back to America a bunch of years ago. But his son was 13 years old, was in 8th grade, and he was looking for high school for his son. And I remember I met him in shul one day in Givat Zev, in Yudkowsky, and he was like all bent out of shape. I said, what happened? I was going, I said, hello. He said, oh, he's frustrated. What happened? I'm quoting you, almost to come out word. He said, I checked out all the high schools in Jerusalem. And I found the one that's best for my son. And all because we live in Givat Zev and it's that, they don't want to take him and it's such a stupid reason. And now and he was all frustrated. And I remember, first I was probably about 10 years older than him, but just life experience. I remember thinking really now, you found the high school that's best for your son, and that's the only place where he'll be successful. And do you know how he's going to get along with the friends in his class? Maybe there's going to be a kid that was abused as a child and is going to bully your son. Maybe there's a Rabbi that just won't match his personality. It doesn't have to even be anything terrible. Maybe it just won't be that he's going to get what he needs to develop and be his best self. And the person, of course, we're supposed to try. Hashem gave us brains. And if you check out the schools and this is a school that seems right for you, for sure try to get him in. But if he doesn't get in, what happens then? What happens then? 100%. And not, I would say, not just oof, like what a disappointment. And it's honestly, we're people, so it's normal to sometimes feel that way at the beginning. Oh, this is so frustrating. Oh, that's okay. But at least if we have an intellectual recognition, who knows what would have happened in that other school? Who knows who my son needs to be? If it didn't work out, he'll go somewhere else and it'll be great. It's not just like a secondary. Anyway, that was part one of the story. That morning, I felt he just needed empathy because he was frustrated, and I just listened to him. I said, oh my gosh, that must be so disappointing, or whatever. Like, the whole story, fine. 6 months later, I met him again. This time outside B'nai Yeshivas. The yeshiva I worked in the morning, went on a trip. I had a day off. I stayed home. I went to shul to learn, and obviously ended up schmoozing with people, which happens often, but talking to people about life. But I met the same guy again, and we started talking. And in his head, I don't think he wasn't connecting the two conversations, but to me, it was a life lesson. And he starts telling me, he says, oh, my son is this crazy, this high school in Jerusalem. My son is there. He is thriving. He's so happy. It's this little school, and the Mashgiach has like a Hasidish and a Neshama, and it's just what my son needs, and he loves it, and he comes home every Shabbos, and he's telling me all the territorial, and he's running to learn. And in my head, I still never told him. Maybe one day I should call him in America and tell him. But in my head, I'm saying 6 months ago, you were ready to sit shiva because your son didn't get into the school that you thought was the best school for him. And now he's somewhere else. And you're telling me how delighted he is, how happy he is, how well it's working for him. What a pity for that 6 months of being frustrated when you could have just sort of trusted Hashem from the beginning that what he's doing is really what's best for you. It's so really in a certain way. We talk about being non-judgmental. Sometimes you see people doing something and say why are you thinking the guy's doing something wrong? Find out the details, happens to be when we're talking about dealing with people, sometimes even if a person is doing something wrong, when you know the whole story, you look at him in a different way, in a more understanding and compassionate way. I'll tell you a tiny story that also touched me so deeply many, many years ago, and it taught me a lesson about life. I grew up in Bar Park, and before I was zeicha to make Aliyah move to Eretz Yisrael, to Israel, so I went home for Shabbos once, and I needed to buy some, I don't remember what, undershirts, socks. Around the corner from my parents' house was a dry goods store. So I went to the store, and I picked out my purchases. I went up to pay. The owner of the store was a Hasidic guy. I knew him from over the years growing up in the neighborhood, a little bit, whatever, fine. And the person in front of me online, waiting to pay, got into a whole spat with the store owner. The store owner was being a little bit obnoxious and, gruff, and the guy was hey, calm down. I don't remember exactly even what happened. Fine, he paid and he left the store, it came my turn. And I remember feeling a little bit, I wanted to just make things a little bit pleasant. So I said, a nice comment, I said, your store is always so nice, it's such good variety and such good prices, whatever. And the guy looks at me and he goes, oh, you don't even know what I'm going through. And he starts telling me that his daughter got married a few months before and she just came back home. On the verge of a divorce, and her husband was so abusive to her, and she's broken, and he's ripped apart by this. And I was thinking oh my gosh, the guy before me left the store, walked out hey, what's your problem? What are you getting so upset about every little thing, Just because people are people, God forbid, we should never be tested. But the poor guy, his daughter is you just spent $100,000 marrying off his daughter and all the dreams for a future, and everyone they should build a nice Nam Yisrael and all the brachas, and now she's home, destroyed, broken, distraught. Be'ez Hashem, she should heal and go on. I hope she did. The story was 25 years ago, but just understanding, don't be judgmental. And sometimes I think it's also true about our relationship with Hashem. Do we give him the benefit of the doubt? How do we perceive, really, when we discuss it honestly, our vision is so limited. How much do we know about ourselves? How much do we know about our future? How much do we know like what we're here in this world to accomplish? People apply for jobs. Sometimes they get it. Sometimes they don't. People, apply for schools. Sometimes you get it in your kid's school. Sometimes they get it. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes kids have a hard time in school. You send the kid to a great school and he's not doing well, and either they send him out or he drops out, and then you have to start finding a different kind of, miscarriage for him. What is he meant to do with his life? It could be hard, and it takes a lot of, strength and fortitude to deal with it. But when we recognize there's something meaningful, because Rabbi created this world, lahitiv, to give good. He didn't. I think the bracha of Yotzer HaMa'oros, it's learning to see light. It's learning to see the light of Hashem in our life experiences. To know there's something here buried that's meant to be good. There's something beautiful that's meant to come out of it. And we look at our life, I don't know, like all of us sitting in this room started off somewhere else. I'm speaking this English. I travel in America, taxi driver after I got out of the army, so I know a little bit. I sold used car in Miami, But we all came from English-speaking countries. Okay, not that one, right? So we were zeicha to come here. I think so many times you look back at your life, where life led you, how you ended up, where you ended up. Things like so surprised you. It's like, in a certain way, like letting go, and letting the one that has the reins have the reins happily, because it's based on the knowledge that he only wants what's best for me, what's right for me. We don't live forever. Like, we have a mission to accomplish in this world. Hashem guides us and takes us places where we need to be. You're never going to get the benefit out of what you're going to do if you're fighting it. If you're not, and again, honestly, we're human beings, and sometimes things feel disappointing, sometimes things feel frustrating. I'm not saying like, to live in a bubble and like everything, we're real. Sometimes things like, oh my gosh, why did this happen? And it's hard. But to process it correctly, to have a sense of knowledge, vision, security, something positive is meant to come out here. Hashem knows what he's doing. It could be it's hard, it's true. I'm remembering another story just coming to mind by Yudkowsky. My first week when I was there in yeshiva, there was a boy there. He came with a Rabbi, could we talk? So I said, sure. He said, do you mind if we go outside? We went outside. I said, maybe we can go to the park across the street. So I said, yeah, for sure, fine. It's a nice day. We went to the park across the street, up against Ellenbogen, and he sits down and he starts crying. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, what happened? So he told me that he dated this girl. She was beautiful and glamorous and from a very wealthy family and very, like, she traveled the world kind of thing. And he was from a more simple, like a more simple Pashto family, which she really liked him. They went out like 10, 11 times, and then she said, I'm not sure if I want to continue. She took a break for a month, and then she came back and said, no, I think it's the right shidduch for me. I just need to date a little bit more to be secure with it. So they started dating again. They dated another month and a half. They went another bunch of times. And after the whole thing, like the night before I met him, she decided to end it. She said, like, it's just not for me. And he was really like so brokenhearted, like, he was excited to get married. And I remember in the course of the conversation, one of the things I said to him was that, I want to just tell you one thing you need to know now. Maybe you don't feel it. It's right now you were so excited to get engaged and you really liked her and she obviously really liked you and it was enjoyable, her company, and it made you feel good that this wonderful girl liked you, and now all of a sudden she doesn't want to marry you. That hurts and it feels disappointing and frustrating, and it also could be like insulting a little bit kind of thing. And that's all real feelings and they need to be processed. But I want you to know one thing. One day when you're going to be married to the girl that's right for you, you're going to look back and you're going to say, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, thank you. Thank you that this shidduch didn't work out. Because really, again, our vision is like sort of so limited. But end of story is that this guy ended up being my neighbor in Givat Zev a few years later. Happily married with a bunch of kids, Baruch Hashem.
What if it
I'm sorry?
What if it didn't work out?
Okay, so that's a fair question. That's an honest question, and that's a fair question. What if it doesn't end up working? Not every story has a happy ending. That's true. That needs to be put on the table. It's 100% true. I think part of our mission in living life is to give ourselves the best chance by living positively. But even when you do that, not every story has a happy ending. Sometimes kids die from an overdose. They didn't end up straightening out and becoming great people because of everything, the hardships they went through. Sometimes they don't get out of it. Rahman al-Islam, and many other such things like that. And I think there's a certain sense of knowing, for each one of us individually, we grow by doing the best we can in any situation. And ultimately, one day we know that Hashem has a plan. Not everything we understand in this way. Part of the reason we daven for Mashiach in Yizchak Shemei Rabbi is because there are those stories. There's wonderful people that fell asleep at the wheel and got killed at a young age, and their wife is a widow, and their kids are orphans, and people have a hard time. Like, not everything, but we know ultimately that the one who's running the whole show knows what he's doing. And ultimately, everything is for a reason that one day we would say, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I got it. Okay, I see why that happened. Like the Chaim said a mashal about that. Very often we see things in Elam Hazeh, in this world, but sometimes we don't. Sometimes it's a later generation. But I'll tell you the mashal of the Chaim, which I'm sure most of you probably heard anyway, but just to repeat it again, I think, at this point. But the Chaim said a mashal to a guy who grew up in a city, and one day he decides he's vacation, he goes out to visit his cousin out in the farm, and before the days of internet where you just could Google anything and know exactly how everything on planet Earth works because you just see it online, but back in the day in the mashal, so the city guy goes out to the farm and he doesn't know anything about farm life. So one day they go out to the field and he says, wow, what a beautiful, nice green field, and it's weeds and overgrown, but it's like looks nice, it's all growing, and then the farmer comes with his cows, and he hooks them up to the plow, and he starts plowing the field, and he goes, what are you doing? It was like such a beautiful field, you're just breaking everything up and making everything dirty and muddy. And the farmer says, don't worry, you're going to see, you know the most, right? And then he comes with a sack of wheat, and he starts taking out the grains of wheat and throwing them into the ground. The guy says, what are you doing? That's wheat, that's food, you can eat it. Why are you throwing it in this dirty mud? And the guy says, just wait. Fine. He comes, he waters it, and now you're like drowning it in water. Fine. It starts growing, and he goes, oh, now I see. Finally it grows, nice, beautiful plant. He says, okay, I see it was all worth it, because it's true, it looks much nicer now than it did before you started. And then one day the guy comes with a scythe, and he starts grabbing the wheat and chopping it all down and throwing it on the floor. And he goes, what are you doing? Like, it was so beautiful. And the whole step, and then the cow, and he's threshing it and stepping on it. What are you doing? And then he takes the kernels of wheat. Oh, okay, now I see. And then he takes it and he puts them in a mill, and he grinds it into powder, and you just crushed it up. And then he mixes it with flour, and he pops it in the oven, and an hour later comes out a fresh, tasty loaf of bread, and he says, this was the whole point really all along. So the Chofetz Chaim says very often, if you envision like frames on good old-fashioned movies anyway, right? You guys know what I'm talking about, right? Not in yeshiva, they don't, but you guys know, right? So like you have like like a frame of a movie, and you look through one frame after the next, and like everything's changing a little bit, but eventually you get to the end where you see the point of the whole thing, frame after frame. One day we know everything is going to be able to be understood in a way. Nothing was accidental, and everything had a meaningful purpose that was meant to be. And that's comforting even in the things that we don't see the positive result at the end. I want to also just share, I think, something which touches upon this. My mother, Leshon, survived the Holocaust as a child. I was born in 1968. My mother came to America 20 years before as a 12-year-old girl. She was born in 1936. She was 3 years old when the war broke out. She used to share with me, she remembered running from the Germans in the beginning of September. She was in Poland, and the German bombers were like flying over the roads where everybody was running to escape. People were traveling east to get away from the advancing Germans, and they were strafing and bombing, and people were dying left and right. And she remembers her father, my grandfather, holding her and davening to Hashem, Hashem, please rescue us, please save us, and so on and so forth, right? If we would have asked someone in 1945, was the Holocaust, was there like anything positive that happened out of it? Did it bring any good to the world? Like, Hashem Yerachim, like 6 million people. My mother's cousins, like horrible stories. And anyway, like 6 million of our brothers and sisters were so brutally murdered. And the personal pain of every one of those 6 million people, like some people never knew they were dying until they died. But most of the people went through such horrific, inhumane torture. It's horrible, right? It's like horrific we can't even let ourselves think about it. But without going into details and things like that, but Klal Yisrael today has rebuilt in a way out of the ashes more. There's more people learning Torah and doing mitzvahs, I think, like here in the state of Israel than ever was before since the time of the destruction of the second Beis Hamikdash. So, it's again a question like, was that the only way to have got things done, and so on and so forth? Also part of it really is the Teichacha, where Hashem says, I gave you a beautiful chance to live a wonderful, spiritual, good life. And if you take it, great, then you'll be blessed more than any other nation in the world, which is what we have seen in the course of our history also. And at the same time, Hashem tells us, like I told the boys in Yeshiva really last week, because of all the anti-Semitism that's rising all over the world, we were talking about anti-Semitism. Like, what happens when a cop decides to retire? We get a new cop. What happens when the head honcho cop decides to retire? Usually people make a shechianu. I'm just joking. But what happens when the head honcho cop decides to retire? Fine, so we get a new head honcho cop, right? What happens if the Jewish people decide to retire? We don't want to, done. We're out. I don't want to be religious. I want to go party. I want to go to the beach. I want to go to clubs in Tel Aviv. I want to have a good time. And I'm not interested in being a good Jew. I'm not interested in living a life of kedusha. I'm not interested in living a life of honesty. I'm not interested in living a life of tzedakah and all the chesed and kindness. It's been working on yourself, not speaking lashon hara, to speak good about other people. I want out. I'm done. And not I, me, all of us, like the whole Jewish nation. We want other things. What happens then? Could the world survive without a Jewish nation? Without somebody to give it like moral guidance? Hitler, by the way, said the reason why he wants to destroy the Jews is because they're the moral conscience of the world. Could the world survive without a moral conscience? Look at the way the world looks with the Jews. Imagine how it would look chas v'shalom without the Jews. I mean that honestly. So Hashem will do whatever it takes to bring us back, because we need to be doing this, not only for His sake and the world's sake, which is a good enough reason too, but for our sake. That's when we're truly alive, when we're working on ourselves to fill our neshamas with the light of Hashem. Hashem, how do you want me to live? How do you want me to behave? The more we see Hashem's goodness in the world, the more we feel inspired and empowered to emulate Him, to be good and to do good for others and to live a life that reflects His life to the world around us. Ain't nobody else going to do it if not us. It's Hashem. Because Rabbi should open our hearts and souls to feel His kindness, to feel His goodness, to feel the beauty of His goodness to the world, that every human being, every healthy person, there's so much chesed in the world, there's so much good, and we should be zeicha to internalize that the experiences we go through, we should see it in a positive light. Do I have time for a story? One little story I wanted to share? Okay. I don't know what time it is, but okay. I want to share with you a fascinating story I heard from my daughter-in-law, who heard it from her sister. It's really a touching story, and I think there's something like so human and so beautiful about the story. My daughter-in-law's sister lives in Beitar. About, how many years ago? Maybe, 7, 8, 9 years ago. There was a young married woman who lived in Beitar. I think she was 34 years old. She had 7 kids, and Rahman al she got sick with cancer. And first round, Baruch Hashem, she got better. She got recuperated. Second time around, she didn't make it. She passed away at 34 years old. She left 7 children behind. Her husband is a really, really special guy. She was a really, really special lady. And Rahman al this widower, is left raising 7 children by himself. The grandparents, half moved in, her parents, and were helping to take care. But still, this guy's raising these 7 children. One day, there's a knock on the next door neighbor's door. This couple, has another family living on the same floor of their building, and the lady that lives next door, someone knocks on the door. She goes to open the door, and it's one of these little girls that just lost her mom a few months before. She's in, 9 years old, in 3rd grade, 4th grade, something like that, 9, 10 years old. And she says to this lady, "Can I ask you a favor?" She says, "Sure, please. What can I do for you?" "My little sister is having her sitter party tomorrow. She's 6 years old in 1st grade, and she's getting her sitter. When I was in 1st grade, my mom baked a cake for me to take to school. All the girls are allowed to bring something to school. My little sister's going to go tomorrow. She's not going to have anything to bring, and she's going to feel like left out. Could you bake a cake for her to bring to school tomorrow?" First of all, it's just so touching that this girl is thinking of her little sister and concerned for her and feeling bad that she's going to... It was so thoughtful. So she asked this to the next door neighbor lady, "Could you bake a cake for my little sister?" Well, ain't nobody saying no to that request, right? She said, "Sure, thank you so much for asking me. I'll be happy. Yeah, no problem. I'll bake a cake. I'll bring it over." She closes the door, and my daughter-in-law says, "Who's friends with this lady?" So this lady, she's married a bunch of years. She has a bunch of kids. She said, I'm a balabasta. I keep my house clean and neat, and the laundry and cooking and what? Baking is not my thing. She's just not a baker. She makes fruit salad for dessert every Shabbos, or she buys ice cream. Baking was not her thing. But here, this little girl asked her to bake a cake. How could she say no? She can't say no. So she said, I just felt like I said, "Hashem, you gotta help me. I'm doing this. I want to do this mitzvah to help this poor little girl lost her mom. Help me out." She takes out a recipe book, and she starts flipping through the pages. And she said she just felt like the word she used was a hashra'ah, like a presence. Something in the room. And as she's flipping through pages, she sees a certain recipe for a sponge cake or something. And she's like, "That's the recipe. Make that recipe. Do that one." Fine. So she takes out her mixer, and she puts in the eggs and the flour and the margarine and the sugar. Right? The ladies appreciate this part, okay? Anyway, she puts all the ingredients together. She whips up the batter, and what do you know? It came out pretty good. It tastes good. Okay, Baruch Hashem. Preheats the oven, greased pan, pours it in, pops it in the oven. 35 minutes later, she takes it out. It's a gorgeous cake. It came out perfect. It looks puffy and nice. And she says, wow, like, thank you, Hashem. It came out amazing. And she's looking at the cake, and then she says, you know what? It's a pity. It looks like just so plain. It's a plain cake. Like, let me do it. If I'm doing the mitzvah, let me do it right. So I want to make it nice. She's thinking, I'm going to make an icing. Let me ice the cake. Same thing happens again. She opens up her recipe book, starts flipping through the pages, and all of a sudden she has like sort of this feeling, this recipe, make this icing. Fine. She mixes together the ingredients, the confectioner sugar, whatever else, mixes together the ingredients, pours it on the cake, and it came out beautiful. And she's like, wow, like Hashem, like she feels like a special siyata d'shmai. And then she's looking at it again, and she says, you know what? It still looks like a little plain. Let me decorate it. What should I do? Maybe I'll put a pasuk on it. What pasuk? I know, it's for a siddur party. I'm going to put on the pasuk, Vanis filosi l'cha Hashem Yisrael. How should I do that? I don't know. Icing? You know what? I'll use chocolate chips. So she goes to the cabinet, she takes out chocolate chips, and she writes with chocolate chips on the cake, a vav, and then an aleph, and a nun, Vanis filosi l'cha Hashem Yisrael. And she says, it's beautiful. She takes out colorful sprinkles. She makes like a border around the edge of the cake with the colorful sprinkles, and it looks gorgeous. And she says, okay, now it's ready. She's so grateful that it came out so beautiful. She takes the cake, she walks across the hall back to the neighbor, and she knocks on the door. A minute, a couple seconds go by, the door opens up, and it's the rabbi, the guy whose wife had passed away. And she looks at him and she says, your older daughter asked me if I could bake a cake for her little sister who's having a siddur party tomorrow, so I made a cake. And he looks at the cake, and he starts crying. And she's like, what did I do wrong? What happened?